Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us here today. My name is Abria Akil, and I'm currently a fellow at Financial Beginnings Oregon, which is a nonprofit organization that offers financial literacy courses to youth and adult participants across the state of Oregon.
Hello, everyone. My name is Deja, and I'm also a fellow with Financial Beginnings Oregon. Today, we're going to be starting our first episode of our podcast, going over financial literacy and different topics within financial literacy. So, our first episode today is going to be looking at women of color in finance. And to do so, we have a special guest here with us. Hana, would you like to introduce yourself?
Okay, my name is Hana, and I am a first year student at Oregon State University, and I am half Japanese, half Indian, and identify as brown and use she, her pronouns.
So, we're first going to start off with like a definition of financial literacy so we're all on the same page. So, we define financial literacy as the ability to understand and apply financial skills. So, that's pretty broad, and we're going to be talking about a lot of different financial skills today. So, I think the first thing that um, we want to ask is just a general question, and we can all go around and answer it. Do you think you are financially literate, and what does financial literacy mean to you?
Personally, I do not think I'm financially literate really in any way. I don't feel like I've really had much exposure, and so um, I would overall wouldn't classify myself as having a lot of knowledge in that area. It's basically, I think, for me just to be able to understand what something, when something is written or told to me, like being able to comprehend what that exactly means and what that in, is asking me to do as a person. Um, and that would probably be my definition.
I actually agree with you, Hannah. Like, I as though sometimes we're not equipped enough going out into the world as young adults to actually know like what we're getting ourselves into. And I feel like I've came across that situation a lot more times than I can actually count on my hands. Like maybe, getting a credit card and not knowing all the specs or information about it. And then that affects my credit score. And now I have to clean that up just to, go get a loan or go get a car or, rent a house or apartment. And I feel like, what was the first part? Um, and yeah, so to pretty much like answer the question, no, I definitely felt like I wasn't equipped enough to actually be financially literate, and I don't feel financially literate. So that's why I feel like, programs like Financial Beginnings, their foundations program is kind of helping me in a sense because I'm learning more and more actually about like what money is and how I can grow it, how I can save it, how I can be responsible with it, and also how to just, make my money work for me instead of the other way around.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I would say that throughout school, like elementary, middle, and high school, I never was exposed to any sort of classes or coursework that prepared me for adulthood, especially when it comes to finances. Um, so it's actually been something I've had to navigate on my own, especially like applying to colleges and figuring out like how much does this cost? Can I afford that? And all of the little expenses that come with doing that. It's definitely been a bit difficult, and I wish I had had something like financial beginnings earlier on before I had already like applied to college and things like that. Our next question that we have here is, when did you first learn about finances and who taught you?
I would say my first exposure would probably be my dad. I remember when I was little, I would watch him do taxes, and I felt like a big like homework assignment that was never ending, and I would just help out by like stapling receipts and stuff. But um, probably that would be my first exposure, and I guess on a more personal, on like more hands-on wise, over the past summer, I got my first credit card, and I've been like responsible for paying the bills monthly and understanding what credit is. And so that would probably be another example. But I'd say in both situations, my dad kind of helped me step by step understand what's going on and like sign things with me and tell me what kind of like bank account I should open, etc. And so I would say definitely my dad. Um, in my family, my mom like doesn't really speak English too well, so my dad kind of does all the finances. And so yeah, I would definitely say my dad, and not so much really from school or really anything else. Um, and yeah.
For me, I I can't even think of like an initial exposure that I had. Ever since I was young, I've enjoyed like saving money. So probably, initially getting like money for a birthday or for a holiday would be my initial exposure to finances, and just like saving up my money, seeing how much I could save and how fast I could grow the money in my bank account. But um, I would say the most influential experience I've had with finances was over the summer. Really, uh, I just became really stressed about like paying for college, especially since I want to um, go to like law school and graduate school. I just have been really obsessing over how I'm gonna afford like 12 years of school. So, doing a lot of my own research and like watching YouTube videos on it and reading books about finances has really helped me. And those have been the resources that have kind of taught me what I know today about financial literacy. And it hasn't necessarily been anyone like in my life directly.
I feel like that's really interesting because it's either like maybe our fathers taught us or we just kind of learned on our own. For me, my first initial exposure was my father too. He kind of taught me like I think around like 10 years old. One of the first lessons he actually taught me about like finances was always keep a good credit score and just make sure you're on top of paying your bills. And at the time, of course, I'm 10 years old. I had no idea what he was talking about, no idea what he even meant by that. But it kind of stuck with me, I guess, over the years. And so now that I'm an adult, I always think back like, I kind of should have listened to my dad that one time he said that because maybe it really would have helped me in the long run a little bit better. And I just wish he was around to actually help me more. But that was my first initial exposure. And I feel like now, like getting my first credit card, trying to go buy my first car, things like that. People run your credit and they see that as like, like your character or how you are with your money. And I feel like I wasn't as responsible with it because I just didn't know how really important it was. But now that I know, it's like you don't know what you don't know. So, but now that I know, I feel like I'm better equipped.
And I think that's where a lot of the disparities in financial literacy stem from, not knowing what you don't know. And I think a lot of the time, since, you know, at least the public education system doesn't make a huge effort to teach kids about the importance of financial literacy or financial stability, and then, um, you know, not talking about that in school and not hearing about it, um, students aren't going to take it upon themselves to go out and do that research and look for those answers because they don't even know that they need to, really.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I think,
Exactly.
yeah. And I think with like people, especially our age, I don't know, I would say people in high school and also college, you're so busy with just so many life transitions that it's hard to dedicate X amount of time focusing on, like, that takes a lot of willpower and individual motivation to like inform yourself while you have to juggle with, um, I don't know, just having a big life change, doing a new workload, stressing about, I guess, what anyone would stress about regarding their career and what they want to study. So I personally have found it really hard to, I guess, like motivate myself to like find those resources and educate myself, especially because I think like the best way people learn is kind of learning through hands-on or being forced to learn. And so having to make individuals kind of do it on the side at a young age can be like a real challenge, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think it's kind of hard to to reach kids and make them feel like what they're learning is applicable if you're talking about paying taxes and they haven't even had their first job yet, right? So they don't know exactly what it is, they haven't seen it, and it just feels like something that's so kind of so far removed from them when really it can be closer than it appears. uh, okay, so speaking of these disparities, I mean, we're all um, women here, so I think it's important to kind of look at some of these statistics and kind of understand why this may be the case and what we can do to shift our culture as a country and globally. So, overall, women are less financially literate than men. So, one study from TIAA shows that 51% of women are unable to pass a financial literacy test, whereas only 44% of men are unable to do the same. 54% of US women also find it difficult to cover their bills and expenses, and 31% of women are financially fragile, whereas only 23% of men uh, are financially fragile. So, for all of these statistics, women surpass their male counterparts, and overall, it shows that women are less financially stable than male counterparts. So we go to the same schools for the most part. We have, for the most part, the same access to this education when we're going in elementary school, middle school, high school, and even on to college. So why do you guys think women are so far behind when we ultimately have access to the same resources up until we leave high school?
I just think it also depends on like where exactly you come from and your generation of family. I know for my family, being raised and born down in the South, they're kind of traditional in that way. So, my grandma kind of passed down to my mom, like, usually the man is the head of the household. The man is usually the one who control the finances. He's the breadwinner. He's the one that brings the chicken home. So he's the one that gets to make all those decisions about the money in the house. Whereas like women are usually just like the housekeepers in a sense. Not saying that they don't have any control or any knowledge about what their finances look like or what they're doing with them, but it's usually the guy, who's in charge of that. And I know like for my mom personally, that kind of I wouldn't say that was her downfall. I think it was actually her uprising because divorcing my dad, it really gave her that liberation as a black woman in America to learn about money, to earn her own money and just kind of rise, in the ladder, I guess. But that's where I feel like the disparity is coming from so much with it, kind of just that old way of thinking, like, the man is the money maker, so he controls it. He has like the authority, whereas the woman kind of just sits back and just, raise the kids and looks after the house. But I think the generational shifts are happening in this generation specifically, whereas, the women get to go out and work and bring home just as much money as the man.
Yeah, I definitely agree with what you just said. Um, like I see that very strongly in my family too, where personally, like I definitely feel like my dad kind of just does all of it. And I mean, recently my mom has definitely, I think, taken a lot of agency and started like investing in stocks and has been learning more about that. But I think it's just very still traditional in a lot of people's families or places. Um, and I also, I guess on like a different note, I don't know, personally, when I was in high school, I did take one kind of like personal finance class, and I just personally thought it was just kind of intimidating to be in that setting. Um, I felt, I don't know, I just felt like my class was surrounded by a bunch of like men, and I felt like they kind of knew a lot, and I just kind of felt like I didn't know a lot, and so it made me more timid and not really wanting to, I guess, maybe utilize those resources in high school as much as I maybe could have.
I'd agree with that. I never felt like I could take any of those classes. I feel like they were largely dominated um, by males, and it wasn't really encouraged for women or women of color to join those classes. So I think that's a little bit unfortunate and definitely um, a place where we need to shift our thinking and understanding if we want to progress. We are going to wrap it up here. So first of all, thank you, Hana, so much for being a guest on this week's episode. We really enjoyed your responses and your perspective, and I think it's really important that we take more time to understand the perspectives of women of color when we're looking at the financial industry, because it's definitely an industry where women are infiltrating more and more, and it's really important that we do so. Just as a final note, I would like to say that if you are interested in learning more about financial literacy or want access to more financial literacy resources, going on the Financial Beginnings website, they offer a lot of different resource guides, teaching guides, student guides, and access to PowerPoints for different financial topics, including my favorite series, which is the Financial Foundations, which goes over budgeting, banking, credit, risk management, and investing. And I think those are really valuable, and they've really helped me in my shift from high school into college in managing my own finances and becoming more financially literate.
Yes, me as well. Thank you so much, Hannah, for joining us today. Is there anything that you would like to add as one more note?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. I really, I guess, enjoyed this conversation because I didn't really think much about financial literacy. Now I'm definitely very interested, especially when summer comes around to, I don't know, learn more about it and um, just, you know, improve not only financial literacy for myself, but now that I know that it's, I guess, a struggle for um, women, especially, but also like minority women, to kind of shed light to that topic, and is something that I didn't really know much about, but would love to continue learning more about it. So thank you for, I guess, informing me about this. I don't know if it's issue necessarily, but this, I guess, like topic, because I think it's really important.
Great. Thank you again. And we will see everyone next week